in the heart of the Pelagian deep, far beyond the navigational routes of modern sailors. An unnatural silence had lingered for centuries, beneath the crushing pressure of 9,000 meters of water. A rhythmic signal pulsed through the darkness, not a glitch, not tectonic. It was deliberate, encoded, and ancient. Dr. Elara Myles, a renowned marine archaeologist with a reputation for chasing myths, received the signal unexpectedly. At first, it appeared as interference, just static across her team's deep-sea scanners, but its repeating pattern stirred something within her. She recognized its rhythm years ago. While studying a forgotten chamber beneath the ruins of Pharaohs, she had sketched a similar motif on limestone, an untranslatable pattern carved in an extinct dialect. It couldn't be a coincidence. Driven by instinct and obsession, Elara assembled a team and secured a research vessel, the Argos Light. They charted a course into international waters, into a zone marked only by abyssal ridges and folklore. As the ship reached the coordinates, storm clouds gathered overhead, as if the ocean knew what lay beneath. A submersible was deployed, its titanium hull creaking under immense pressure. As it descended, its lights pierced through the ink-black water. The temperature dropped beyond expected norms. Sonar showed vast hollow spaces below man-made architecture where none should exist. Then, out of the murk structures emerged pillars of obsidian, sweeping arches, and a shattered bridge suspended whole avenues of stone stretched outward, covered in coral and thyme. And then they saw it. A massive bell tower, inexplicably intact, slowly swaying in the current. From its hollow core echoed a low chime. Not possible underwater. It rang once, then twice. Elara's voice, recorded in a mission log, trembled. This is no myth. This city predates our oldest maps. It isn't Atlantis, it's something else. The language carved here, it shifts when you focus on it, like it's alive. I feel like I've seen these symbols in dreams I never had. Inside one submerged courtyard, a statue of a figure with no face held a golden orb. As the submersible approached, the orb cracked open, releasing a beam of brilliant light into the trench below. Alarms rang on the ship. The ocean seemed to convulse. Sonar showed a sudden movement, a massive object, not geological, rising from the depths. Elara's final words on the transmission were faint, distorted. We've awakened something that remembers. This city, it's not abandoned. It's waiting, and now it knows we're here. The broadcast ends in static, followed by a single image, burned into the remaining video. The city slowly lighting up, one structure after another, in perfect sequence like an ancient machine, reactivating after millennia of sleep. The city stirred. Beneath the pressure of the ocean's crushing blackness, the carved streets of the sunken metropolis awakened with ancient light, not mechanical, not magical, something older than both. A living energy pulsed through the arches and dome, humming through glyph-lined conduits, like blood returning to forgotten veins. Elara watched from the command center, her eyes wide and unblinking, mesmerized. The orb had done something, opened a channel, not just to another space, but to a memory buried in the ocean floor. The research crew was divided. One technician begged to ascend, to leave the trench before the temperature dropped further, and before the pressure began to distort their instruments. Another, Dr. Rowan Thales, argued to go deeper. We've breached something sacred, he whispered, running his fingers over a screen flickering with incomprehensible sigils. It's reacting to us, but not with hostility, with recognition. As the submersible descended farther, it passed under a massive stone arch, etched with markings that shimmered when touched by light. Beyond it lay what Elara believed to be a central plaza. At its center was a spiral well, perfectly circular, glowing faintly with bluish-green mist that defied every known oceanic chemical composition. Floating around it were fragments of stone tablets. One fragment bore a symbol Elara had seen once before, on a clay shard stolen from the black market, labeled only as the pressure outside should have crushed them by now. But something about the city's airless presence warped physics. Elara felt no fear, only a growing sense of déjà vu. She activated her suit recorder and spoke barely above a whisper. It's as if this place remembers us, like it was waiting for someone to come back. The crew picked up low-frequency vibrations that matched the earlier signal, but this time, there was a pattern like speak, not in any known language, but recursive and rhythmic. Like a chant, it echoed through the bones of the ship. Then, the lights dimmed. The orb still cradled in the statue's hand shut with a final click, and the city grew silent once more. Just then, the submersibles. External cameras caught movement. A silhouette, bipedal, slender, moving along the rooftops, and then another. Dozens. They didn't swim, they walked, upright, graceful. Their faces glowed faintly, with the same blue light that coursed through the city's veins. One stopped and looked directly into the camera lens, though no eyes could be seen. A voice clear and melodic whispered not into the microphone, but into Elara's mind. "You are not the first." Elara staggered back, heart pounding. The others heard nothing. The voice was meant only for her. The beings faded as quickly as they had appeared, vanishing behind the stone pillars like vapor on the tide. The submersible's internal oxygen levels remained normal, but the crew began reporting headaches and blurred memories. Some couldn't recall the last 24 hours. One forgot her own name for several minutes. And still, Elara wanted more. "We can't leave now," she insisted. "We've made contact, or it made contact with us. We were standing at the edge of something history has erased, something that might explain why we forget what came before us." Above them, on the surface, storm systems began forming in unnatural spirals, mirroring the architecture below. Satellites picked up electromagnetic pulses originating from the trench. The city wasn't just waking, it was reaching out. And far beneath it all, at the base of the spiral well, something began to rise. The spiral well glowed brighter now, pulsing in a rhythm that mimicked Breslow, steady, sentient. The submersible's instruments, once steady, began behaving. Magnetic interference climbed. Cameras flickered. Every reading was off. Pressure remained survivable, but logically impossible. And yet, the crew remained anchored in their seats, unable to look away from the light below. Dr. Rowan whispered, "It's a beacon. It's been waiting to be triggered." That orb, Elara, it wasn't just a key. It was a signal flare. As he spoke, glyphs across the plaza lit up in sequence, radiating outward like a ripple through time. The symbols rearranged, forming spirals across the walls and floor. They were no longer static carvings. They moved, shifted, reacted. Elara felt something stir inside her, not a memory, but a presence. Something vast and old brushed her consciousness like a cold wind through a cavern. It spoke again, but not in words. It spoke in feeling, in knowing. The city wasn't just architecture, it was alive. It had intelligence, awareness, curiosity. It studied them. One of the researchers, May, turned pale and stared at her hands. "Why are my veins glowing?" she asked, voice cracking. Luminous strands of blue traced up her arms. Then she screamed only. It wasn't fear, it was awe. "I can see them. Above. Lights. Cities. Before the flood. Before it all burned." She collapsed, unconscious but breathing. They brought her back into the sub. Her vitals were stable. Her dreams, according to a neural monitor, pulsed at an elevated frequency, a pattern nearly identical to the original signal Elara received. Somehow, May's mind had become a receiver. "We have to go deeper," Elara said, her voice calm and resolute. The others hesitated, but the city offered no choice. The spiral well opened. The stone floor below them shifted without machinery, folding inward like petals. A path descended into the earth. They followed it in silence, descending into the marrow of the sunken city. The light dimmed, replaced by faint whispers, and the soft glow of embedded crystal veins running along the corridor. And then they saw it. A colossal chamber beneath the city's foundation, suspended in its center, in a dome of translucent mineral, was a figure of humanoid form, its body wrapped in golden bands and flowing glyphs. The being floated motionless, arms folded across its chest, encased in a chrysalis of some forgotten element. His face was hidden behind a helm, etched with spirals matching the plaza. Dr. Thels's voice was barely a whisper. "This is no tomb. This is containment." As he spoke, the being stirred, a flicker of motion. The chamber responded. Lights flared. The glyphs rearranged again. And this time, the word became clear in every mind present. The being was not a god, not a guardian, but the builder. The city was a seed, a memory vessel, and the architect was waking up. The spiral pattern began again, brighter and faster. "May, still unconscious," began to mutter, her voice matching the glyph's rhythm. Her pulse aligned perfectly with the city's. Above the chamber, the ocean churned. Whirlpools formed across the surface without weather. Sea creatures long extinct were caught on deep sonar scans. Something was reversing time. Elara understood then. This wasn't an archaeological site. It was a reset mechanism. It was Rowan who spoke first, but the words were not his. His voice, low and trembling, resonated as though spoken through time itself. Epochs decay. Memory must be renewed. The fracture must be sealed. His eyes glazed over, pupils glowing faintly, with the same blue that pulsed from the architect's cocoon. Then he collapsed, silent. May still lay unconscious, her breathing calm, but the symbols etched into her skin had begun to rearrange, crawling like liquid language across her body. Every heartbeat echoed in sync with the pulse of the architect's chamber. Elara's hands trembled as she placed them against the crystal barrier surrounding the dormant being. It was warm, not metallic, not stone, almost skin, and beneath it, the architect's fingers twitched. The lights within the dome spiraled faster. The ceiling above, once solid, now shimmered like a starlit sky, showing visions not of the sea, but of Earth's rivers receding, skies darkening, time reversed and rebuilt, mountains unfurled, deserts became oceans, civilizations crumbled and returned. The city itself, once above the water, sank in slow, majestic silence. Then came the image of a hand, massive, stone-carved, lowering a glowing orb into a pedestal beneath the chamber. The same orb Elara had disturbed. The same orb that had opened the city's eye. They had not discovered a ruin. They had disturbed the submersible S instruments now showed seismic activity not just within the trench but across fault lines hundreds of miles away. The Earth's crust trembled in synchrony with the pulse of the architect. No longer passive, the city had begun transmitting signals outward, invisible waves bouncing across tectonic plates, stirring the memory of the planet itself. On the surface, satellites picked up strange magnetic pulses, forming a global lattice, potentiommetrical, unexplainable. Radio signals around the globe began distorting into static whispers that matched the glyphs echoing inside the chamber. And yet Elara felt no terror. She stood still, heart pounding, as a single sliver of the crystal cocoon began to dissolve. A shaft of light pierced the darkness and fell on her. The glyphs on the chamber walls gathered toward her feet, forming a spiral beneath her, glowing brighter with each breath. Then a single thought filled her mind, her own, but unmistakably precise. "You carry memory. You are chosen." She dropped to her knees as the air thickened with soundless pressure. The architect's body began to shift, the golden bands unraveling slowly, each one releasing an arc of silent energy that danced through the water like smoke. Rowan stirred behind her, eyes open but vacant, as if another watched through them. May gasped sharply. She sat up, eyes fully alight, with brilliant, white-blue fire, speaking in a voice layered with many tones. "We must remember. We must return. The cycle must complete." The city responded in kind. Towers long, dark, lit up. The dome above them shifted to reveal the stars, not the current night sky, but constellations from a time long lost, star maps from before human memory, before recorded time. The architect was almost free now, suspended by one last strand of golden coil. The glyphs, Sungyas, sung as the chamber resonated with harmonic frequencies no human throat could replicate. Elara realized the truth. This wasn't about exploration or even preservation. This was resurrection. And once it began, it could not be stopped. The last golden strand dissolved into stardust, and the cocoon around the architect unraveled like a silken shroud falling into water. For the first time in uncounted millennia, the being opened its eyes. They were not eyes in the human sense, but radiant spheres. They shimmered with constellations, entire galaxies reflected within. The moment they blinked, Elara felt time bend. Her thoughts fragmented and reassembled like pages torn from a book, stitched back in a different order. The architect lowered to the chamber floor, not by gravity, but by intent. Its body was slender, carved in symmetrical perfection, neither male nor female, clothed in radiant markings that moved like ink flowing through glass. It did not speak. It simply looked at Elara, at Rohan, at Mayan. Then it extended a hand toward the central pillar of the chamber. The moment it touched the pillar, the entire city responded. Across the ocean floor, domes unsealed, spirals illuminated in sacred rhythm. Towers rotated, aligning with deep space coordinates that no modern civilization had ever mapped. It wasn't architecture, it was a machine, a planetary mechanism. On the research vessel above, the crew watched as the sea calmed abruptly. Instruments that had gone haywire now displayed zero movement, no wind, no current. Even the clouds above the trench parted in geometric silence. Then, new readings began streaming in frequencies embedded in light itself. Messages wrapped in waves, maps of Earth, not as it is, but as it was. Inside the chamber, Maynell stood calm, no longer possessed, but transformed. Her voice was her own, and yet older. "We're standing in the memory core," she said. "This is not just a city. It is the archive of a world that came before ours." The architect was left behind to ensure that, when the time came, the record would be restored. Elara stepped forward, eyes locked on the being. "Restored to what?" she asked. The architect turned, and in a thought that brushed every mind present, the answer was made clear not in words, but in overwhelming vision. Civilizations rising and falling in endless loops. Each reset triggered when imbalance grew too great, when humanity forgot its place in the harmony of Earth. This city was a failsafe. The architect, its steward, Rowan gasped, as the walls of the chamber became transparent, showing a vast chamber beneath them, filled with rows of frozen beings, others, like the architect, each one dormant, each one waiting. There were thousands, and some had already begun to stir. "They're not gods," May whispered. "They're witnesses." The spiral beneath their feet flared once more. Then, the architect stepped back into the light and lifted a single finger toward the sky. Above the ocean, something shifted. Satellites recorded the sudden expansion of the ionosphere. Birds fell silent, clocks froze. Time itself trembled. This wasn't activation, it was calibration. The world as they knew it was being resense, not destroyed, but recalculated, according to patterns lost to the memory of man. Elara fell to her knees, overcome by the enormity of what was unfolding. The architect looked at her again. This time, she didn't flinch. She understood now. The city hadn't been calling for help. It had been calling for permission. The architect remained still, arm outstretched, as unseen forces rippled outward from its gesture. In every direction, across every continent, the world began to hum in resonance with the forgotten frequency. Cities lit with flickers of forgotten starlight. Tides reversed momentarily before surging back. Trees bloomed where there had been none for centuries. The oceans exhaled. Animals stopped in their tracks. Time loosened. Elara watched from inside the chamber as the fabric of reality grew thin. She could see it, now not with her eyes, but with her memory. Earth had been here before, hundreds, perhaps thousands of times. Civilizations reaching their apex, then falling not from war or disease, but from dissonance, from forgetting the song that once held everything in place. Rowan backed away from the architect, face pale. "It's rewriting everything," he said. "Physics, memory, maybe even death. This is a system reset, but we didn't choose it. May turned to him, calm and distant. We were never meant to choose. We were meant to listen. All around them, the city vibrated with light. The spiral well now flowed upward like a fountain of liquid time, its surface filled with images, ancient temples, long-lost peoples, extinct languages, being spoken once more. Entire lifetimes replayed in seconds. Then came the fractures. Cracks appeared across the chamber's walls, not from damage, but from shifting perception. Elara blinked and saw herself as a child, walking ruins that hadn't existed yet. She blinked again and saw a future where the architects stood on land, speaking to leaders beneath alien skies. Time had lost its line. The others were slipping too. Rowan wept at visions of cities he had never visited, mourning people he had never met. One of the technicians on the surface ship tried to radio them, but forgot how language worked halfway through the message. All frequencies merged into one. The spiral song. Elara gripped the pillar at the center of the chamber and spoke through the chaos, her voice firm. If this is a memory system, then there must be an anchor, something to hold it stable. The architect turned once more, and for the first time, it spoke aloud, not in her mind, but in sound. That cracked water and stone. Anchor established. Identity chosen. May looked at Elara with wide eyes. You! The spiral beneath her flared brighter than before, engulfing her in light. A flood of knowledge filled her dates, civilizations, lost constellations, rituals, floods, cataclysms, rebirth. She saw herself across time, not reborn, but repeated, always there when the spiral turned. The city was not just it was crowning a custodian. Outside, the ocean receded in a massive ring, exposing parts of the trench that hadn't seen air in tens of thousands of years. The spiral glyphs now etched into the sky, visible from orbit. Elara rose, her voice clear and otherworldly. The recalibration must finish, but it does not have to erase. We can guide it or remember together. The architect knelt, not in servitude, but in ceremony. Elara had become part of the mechanism, not swallowed by it, but fused with it. Rowan stared at her in disbelief. Elara, what are you now? She smiled, and though her face was hers, her eyes now held stars. I am the song returning. The city was no longer sleeping. It pulsed with a rhythm deeper than time. Each breath of the architect now matched by a shifting of the planet itself. Fault lines trembled, not in destruction, but in song. Mountains shivered with ancient memories. Forests bloomed with species thought lost to the ages. Time was no longer a river. It had become a sphere. Above the trench, the sea churned in perfect concentric circles, where their patterns halted mid-motion. A great stillness settled over Earth's surface, like a planet holding its breath. And far below, Elara stood transformed, still herself, but wrapped in the spiraling glow of the city's core. She spoke, and her voice echoed in every mind, regardless of distance or language. This is not erasure. This is remembering. We are not the first. We are echoes. But in echoes, there is continuity. Rowan stepped back, disoriented. You said we can guide it, but we're unraveling. I can't tell what's real anymore. I'm seeing lives that aren't mine. May, now fully in sync, with the glyphs etched into her skin, placed a hand on his shoulder. Because reality is wider than we knew. This is what it always was, before we narrowed it to lines and calendars. The architect moved silently toward a towering obelisk at the edge of the chamber. With a mere glance, it activated a holographic sphere, unfolded, showing the Earth as it once was, continents in different configurations, oceans broader, lights in the sky where no stars now exist. It was not a map, but a memory, projection, planetary recall. Suddenly, the sphere flickered. War, collapse, a spiral out of harmony. The same cycle repeated, over and over. Each time a beacon lit the same city, re-emerging from myth to restore the balance. The spiral glyphs pulsed in warning. This reset was unlike the others. Something had changed. The world had evolved. Humanity now carried fragments of forgotten wisdom, subconscious, ancestral, genetic. The old method, wiping clean would sever what had finally begun to regrow. The architect looked to Elara. Decision requires witness. Witness requires will. She turned to the others, tears forming not from sorrow, but from knowing. This time, the cycle doesn't need to erase. It can merge. Memory, and now, myth, and science. All of it. But the convergence would not be without cost. Reality, as it stood, could not hold both timelines without an anchor strong enough to bridge them. That anchor was not the architect. It was and in choosing to remain as the city's pulse, she would leave behind everything she had been, her identity, her body, her history. She would become the spiral guardian. Rowan stepped forward. There must be another way. The architect turned its gaze upon him. Alternative path. Cessation. Collapse. Repetition, May whispered. He's right. If Elara stays, she becomes the city. Elara smiled. Maybe I always was. The chamber darkened. All the glyphs focused on the spiral beneath her. Light cascaded around her form. Threads of memory wrapping around her like silk, one by one. The other dormant architects stirred in the depths, responding to a call. Not to restart, but to rewrite. And above, the world began to glow not with fire, but with knowledge. A moment of choice, suspended across time. The spiral flared with celestial light, expanding like a cosmic bloom across the chamber's floor. Its glow reached into the earth itself, through bedrock and tectonic plates, through iron and fossil, awakening memory, not just in living things, but in the soil, the wind, and the water. The past was not gone, it had simply been waiting. Elara stood at the center, neither floating nor grounded, suspended by something more profound than gravity. The glyphs spun around her body, weaving into a cloak of living memory. The architect watched, silent, its task nearing completion. All across the city, towers lifted from the seabed, obelisks realigned. The dome above them cracked open not with violence, but with grace, revealing a new sky, brilliant and unfamiliar. On the surface, people across the globe looked upward, stunned. In the sky appeared symbols, glyphs, etched in the clouds, formed from light itself. Those who gazed into them remembered things they had never learned. Songs from ancient tongues, maps of lost rivers, dreams of cities that once floated. Back in the chamber, Rowan fell to his knees, eyes filled with tears. "Elara," he whispered, "you're still you, right?" Her voice echoed, layered and soft. "I am the record and the reader, the keeper and the key. But do you remember us?" he asked. "I remember everything," she said gently. "I remember fireflies on our first dig, the scent of old parchment, your laugh when we found the obsidian ring. Nothing is lost." Then came the final convergence. The city surged. The sea around it parted momentarily, revealing its full glory to the sky for the first time in tens of thousands of years. The spiral spun faster, then slowed, slower, until it stopped. And in that moment of stillness, the earth exhaled. Time settled into a new flow. Not linear, not circular, but whole. The dormant architects returned to rest, their chambers glowing with restored stability. The tectonic hum faded, the atmosphere above normalized, but with a new clarity like dust had been swept from the air of existence itself. The city didn't sink again. It remained, suspended just below the waves, visible only to those who could hear the spiral calling. Elara was gone, but not lost. Her presence lived in the pulse of the city, in the currents that brushed the deep, in the dreams of those who had seen the glyphs in the sky. Children were born speaking patterns no one had taught them. Artists painted temples they'd never seen. Somewhere in their souls, humanity had been restored to its fuller memory. Rohan and May returned to the surface, changed, humbled, and when asked what they had found, they simply said, "Ourselves." And deep beneath the waves, in the chamber of the spiral, a single orb began to glow once more, not as a warning, but as a welcome.